This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action, and you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
Welcome to the Krypton Report Podcast, presented by the Southgate Media Group.
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Krypton Report Pod can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Skype, YouTube, and Instagram.
And if you want to drop us a line, send it to kryptonreportpod@gmail.com.
We are on Patreon under Southgate Media Group.
And our official merch page is tpublic.com. Search Krypton Report.
Now on with the show.
The following episode of the Krypton Report is a part 2. If you're wondering, well, where was part 1? It is a crossover that we do with the Last Sons of Krypton podcast. You can find part 1 on their feed by visiting their social media, which will be provided in the show notes, as well as the direct link to the episode in the show notes. So get ready, have fun, enjoy part 2 of the Krypton Report Last Sons of Krypton crossover. Welcome to the Krypton Report special. This is part 2 of a look at Superman the movie. If you hadn't listened to, we had talked about it on our site, and I'll re-put the links up. James and I talked to the Kryptonians down under from the Last Sons of Krypton podcast, and we're discussing, like I said, Superman the movie. So go pause this, go get part 1 from their feed, listen to it, then come back. We'll wait. Go. Okay, it's a pause, so I mean we don't have to actually wait. But welcome, guys. Go ahead and just introduce yourselves.
Well, I am Connor from the House of L.
And I am Ray from the House of Zod.
And we have flown up for the nights, getting away from this awful heat, which is killing a third of the fruit bat population in like a matter of days and doing all sorts of awful things to our country. So,
exactly.
Yeah, we're up in the snow now.
Yeah, we're protecting you. We're going to send you some of our snow vibes.
Oh, good.
Feel that?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what temperature is it there right now?
Right now, it's actually, tonight is one of the cooler nights. Like I'm not struggling that much right now. Yeah, it is only 25 degrees Celsius, which is crazy. That's 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
What's the humidity up there, Connor?
Lord, I wish.
It was like 98% earlier, but it's gone down.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, usually it'll be about 28 degrees at night. Yeah,
nice baking like a meatloaf.
I'm gonna just throw this out there that it has gotten warmer here. It is 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh,
we just experienced a few days of negative in the Fahrenheit.
Yep, we got around to about negative 46 around here.
Wow.
And what's crazy is James is 2 hours away from me. And even in those 2 hours, the differences have been about 10 to 15 degrees.
Yeah, well, that's similar here because over in Adelaide, which is the southern part of our country, the other day they got up to 46 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't even want to guess what that is in Fahrenheit, and I think it's the hottest day on record.
I got my Google converter.
Hey, but like, no one should ever have to go into negatives. That's crazy. That's like, negative marking.
Yeah, but then you can be
not real.
Then you can be Kurt Russell from The Thing, and you can just walk around in a big jacket and go.
There's layers upon layers, and according to weather reports, it was actually colder here in the Midwest around Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio It was colder here than it was in Siberia at the time.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Because Siberia is pretty
Cold.
isolated and cold. Yeah.
Yeah, known to be, but yeah, according to those world weather reports, they were experiencing about -3 air temperature at the time. We were experiencing -10.
Never thought I'd actually want to be in Siberia.
Yeah. Have a pina colada, get the sunnies on, have the board shorts. It's tropical there compared to where you guys are.
So it just reaffirms that when Jerry and Joe were creating Superman, they were like, "Hey, we need to make him where can he live? A planet that's cold and desolate." Yeah, like Ohio, exactly.
Like Ohio in the winter.
So last time we talked, we got really, a really good get to know you kind of thing. But here is my question: Superman, trunks or no trunks? Go.
Oh.
We talked about it briefly, I think, with Action 1000. I don't care. In fact, I find the obsession with the trunks weird. Honestly, I think costume looks
Kind of
good
would
with them.
like.
Costume can
Kind of
look
would
good
like.
without them.
Kind of would like Superman with no pants on at all.
Yeah, thank you, Ray, for that lovely little jab at me. But I mean, see, the people treat the trunks as some sacred thing. For me, it would be like if you got rid of the S or the cape, those are the important parts of the costume for me, not the trunks.
Yeah.
The S and the cape is where it's at. So trunks, I really don't care. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And look, I only just started watching the Death of Superman, the animated thing.
Great movie.
Just on. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I haven't finished it yet. And in it, Superman's got the no trunks, right? He's got the modified suit. I
basically the new 52 suit.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a new 52 suit. I would have. I thought I would have minded that, and I thought I would have just preferred the trunks. But I don't mind that new look. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'd have no. Yeah, I'd have no preference one over the other. Really. Sorry, Tyler. Not a.
No.
Not a. Yeah.
This James and I we talk all the time. We comment on the trunks because, like you said, there are people who have it as sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit of kryptonite hanging around somewhere, eh?
Yes, I think it came down with the snow. I feel like somebody just injected a kryptonite crystal and it made the whole, Ohio kryptonite lace, much like the island in Superman Returns.
Yeah.
That he should not have been able to lift, but that's a whole other discussion. So I have decided after talking with James last night, we're going to do a whole special dedicated to the trunks. Because
cool.
I feel like the trunks are a big deal, but there's it's like Batman. Everyone's like, but Superman, gotta have them. And we're going to just dissect this and dig into it. And I got some ideas. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's a costume choice that made sense when it was created. But over time, I think there's been ways they've done without them that it's worked, and ways that's been done without them that didn't quite work. But I just feel like it's a really outdated concept.
It comes down to the question of, I guess, how pure you are of following Superman or any superhero character for that matter, and how willing you are for it to be, I guess, modernized. And because it was really pointed out, wasn't it, with Action 1000, the whole thing about Jim Lee, his cover, apparently they're bringing back the trunks there, and it seems to be such a big thing. Yeah,
I don't understand how you can be a Superman fan and be such a single-minded purist when the character has gone through so many changes in its origin and stuff.
I mean, think about the boot designs changed. The symbol on his chest has changed.
Whether or not he's had the S on the cape as well.
what the
yeah.
S means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's not just Superman, isn't it? It's like comics in general. I mean, if you're a comic book reader, surely you'd be aware that things kind of morph and change.
I told you, Ray, I'm not reading Daredevil until they undo the damage. Still,
yeah, it's really good, Connor. It's really good.
It baffles me. Like, I kind of come to my piece was, all right, if you want the Trunks in comics, okay. But I think the Trunks in live action needs to stay.
Yeah.
I read that they tried like every possible way to make the Trunks work for Man of Steel, and they just couldn't figure out a way to do it without it looking weird. I think in the comic it works though, because it's just Superman's look.
Yeah.
And it kind of suits him, so it doesn't really matter in the comics.
Yeah.
Because it's so synonymous with him. Whereas if you have Batman wearing trunks nowadays, people are probably like, why is Batman wearing underpants? But Superman's just kind of like that now. But yeah, live action I think would be way too difficult.
Yeah, and they've tried so hard to, I mean, taking, the Daredevil example, they've tried so hard to steer away from spandex. I mean, I know Spider-Man pretty much on film is maybe the only one kind of still qualified to wear it. Everyone else seems to have some sort of street level equivalent to what their costume is, and that goes for like Superman in like Man of Steel. Not so much just like leather and stuff, but it's a lot more grounded. And yeah, I agree. Having Trunks live action, I think it's a good move not to put it in there.
It works in the movies where it was in. Like it works for Superman the movie and stuff. It suits them, but yeah, I was just saying.
Yeah.
That is the tip of our trunk conversation we'll be having.
Underpants.
Exactly.
Underpants on the outside or no?
Yeah.
So
budgie smugglers.
The second thing we're going to discuss is we did take some time between episodes. Timing. There's 4 of us.
We could reverse the axes of the Earth if need be.
Hold on.
Not yet.
Hold on.
Don't even start.
Don't spoil the surprise at the end.
Sorry. Sorry.
But
my head temperature is rising just thinking about that.
So there was released by Walmart a story that caused a lot of controversy. And Connor and I were talking, and we had to try to hunt this sucker down. And it's not the longest story.
No, it's not.
But it's in Superman Giant number 7. Connor, you want to go ahead and just kind of take the lead discussing this, and we'll just jump in here?
Yeah, so the big thing is, so the plot of the story is essentially Superman's he's hunting down a missing girl, and he's in this sort of galactic waiting room. And it's essentially bureaucracy. He's getting the runaround. He's getting frustrated, and he tries to call Lois, and he can't reach her. So he imagines, I think we've all been in this situation as well. Like he's imagined the worst possible thing that could have happened. When we don't know where someone is, and stuff. So he's imagining her dying in these various ways, and it drew a lot of controversy because the first one is especially brutal. And the Walmart comic is supposed to be aimed at new readers. And then there was also the argument of, do we need this in a Superman story? And, I read this with my 10-year-old and I open that page. And a lot of the articles were saying it's 12 pages of Lois Lane being brutally murdered. And when I read it, it was only the first part that was really brutal. Only the first death I thought was excessive. The rest were kind of almost cartoony
and subtle.
It was a strange story. Yeah. That's essentially the recap. I don't know if I've missed anything.
No, I mean it is. It's you have one page of Superman sitting trying to do what he's doing, this alien waiting room, an alien DMV motor vehicle office, and then you have a page of Lois dying, and some of the pages are the whole story of what's happening, and then as the story goes on, each panel is a different death.
Yeah,
And I totally get, like, I don't think that story belongs in this Walmart edition because, you know, the whole purpose of these giant Supermans were to create new short story content of Superman and characters to make it accessible for readers who can't get to the comic shop because there's not one around or don't know where to look. You know, Walmart here are, you know, they're everywhere. Basically, from where I live, in like every direction, 20 minutes, there is a Walmart you can get to.
Yeah, it's probably a bit of a hard question to answer, but Walmart and the release of this comic book in it, is there a particular demographic, like an age group they're looking for? Like, as Connor mentioned, is it for a younger audience, or is it for more, people with their own disposable income?
I would say it's kind of more towards the younger audience, just because of where they place the books, and the fact that they're trying to hook in new readers. I feel like older readers and stuff, you know, they would know how to track down the publications, where to go.
True. I guess what I'm getting at is the content and the opening with Lois. You wouldn't want your 10-year-old, or I don't know, you wouldn't want your kid looking at that, and the story itself may be a little too. I don't know, might go over the heads of younger audiences. I'm just kind of assuming here. So if it's aimed at an older or 20s, 30s audience, it might fare a little bit better. But as you mentioned, I mean, if you're that age, you'll be able to track down comics, no problems at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way they've got them placed in Walmart, I mean, in Walmart's, there's a section that is basically kind of like your collector's section and like your card games and stuff, like Magic and Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. And when it comes to those types of things, I mean, those collector areas are going to draw kids and adults alike.
Yeah.
It's so these stories were put out to, attract new readers. Like, hey, here's some new short stories as well as reprints of a lot of old stories. So all the new stories are only about 12 or 13 pages. I haven't read any of them, but I've heard that there are a lot of collectors out there trying to get all of these 100-page comic giant books. And they've got Superman, Justice League, Titans, Batman. So they've got a number of them in this line that they put out. And I mean, I don't think it was anything to go crazy about. It wasn't.
No. Well, I mean, also as well, as you mentioned, if you're trying to pull in new readers, to me, you'd want to make the story as accessible as possible, as simple as possible. You want to just kind of highlight the characters, maybe a bit of an intro here and there. It seems to me that Tom King has kind of been a bit too smart for his britches, trying to make this story a little too smart. You know what I mean?
Like
with the yeah. I mean, well, that's it, isn't it? So he may have kind of overshot the mark a bit if it's meant to be aimed for like new readers and entice new readers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, if you want to talk about like people's sensibilities these days, I mean, I'm sure you guys heard about the Batman Damned controversy from issue number 1.
Yeah, that was weird.
I mean, a book that was literally written for grown-ups on a line that is mature and adults only line, and people are freaking out about a picture in shadow. And like so much so that they're not even reprinting the book until it's been corrected.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's absurd.
Yeah.
You had stuff like Punisher Max and Fury Max come out, which were much more graphic and showed much more.
Oh, absolutely.
And there was no hubbub over it. Well, there was no big hubbub over it anyway, because it was a Max imprint, which is an adult imprint, you know. And I think with this story, I think it was definitely overreaction, because all these articles are saying, oh, it's 12 pages of her being brutally murdered, and that wasn't the case at all.
No,
you
not at
know,
all.
I think that was just. I think that first page was too excessive, though.
Yeah, it's like shock value. It's supposed to shock you in the reading, but I feel like I felt more lost reading the story. Just the way it kind of went through.
Yeah,
because I think
it was a bit jagged, wasn't it? It was
Stan Lee said that every comic could be somebody's first. So I feel like we were dropped into something without enough of like the back context. But in another thought, the story that's told, I kind of wish. I think it's a strong story that if you had the right villain, that like Superman was going up against somebody like Psycho Pirate or even like Scarecrow, like in a weird kind of transition where he was being attacked, and what he was living was seeing Lois die over and over again, different ways. I think that could be a very strong, powerful story. But the way this is done, it's like just kind of like, oh my gosh. And then at the same time, you're like, is he experiencing this? Is it his imagination? Like,
have you guys read Emperor Joker?
Yes, I have.
I am behind on that one.
Well, there is a sequence where Superman's essentially being tortured, and he keeps being put in this scenario where he has to like rescue Lois from a disaster, but she keeps dying every time. And it was pretty graphic and violent. Well, maybe not like graphically violent, but it was disturbing. But the difference is, like you were saying, it had a place in that story because it was psychological torture being put on Superman, and it was a pretty dark story as well. And that's what I was thinking of the most when I read this, because that was kind of doing it right. And I love the concept of this because I've been in Superman's place, so I've really been worried about someone because I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
You know, I'm imagining what the worst thing happened to them, but like it just wasn't done very well. It was I just don't think the story was very good. I think that first page was too excessive for new readers. And yeah, but like I think obviously there's a bit too much of a big deal being made about it. Like it's just a misfire story. Maybe a bit of a big misfire story, but you know, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, there's going to be another one out next month, so
yeah.
Like I don't think people need to get super upset, but
so. What did you guys think of the art anyway? I mean, I like that. I'm digging that Joker splash. I thought that was pretty good. A couple of nice close-ups. I thought Superman, he looks quite different. He looks a little bit more I don't know how to explain it. Just really nice detailing, I think, from, is it a cubit? Looks like a cubit, right?
I think his face and the shadowing is kind of reminiscent of, I'm not sure who did the art on like Superman, Batman, Supergirl.
Okay.
Where Superman, Batman, Apocalypse was based off of. That story or the art. I'm not sure if he did that one. I know he did Public Enemies.
Okay, yeah, he did Public Enemies.
And then somebody else had picked up the art as the story had progressed. I'm pretty sure that line actually had a number of artists doing the artwork through all the different stories. If you pick up the different volumes, it's always like a different artist.
Yeah.
But in this story, you know, he's always looking so depressed, thinking about all the different ways she could die because he's off world.
I liked the artwork.
Yeah, that looks good.
I liked the artwork when Superman was in the waiting room. I didn't like any of the other artwork though.
Okay.
You know, The Joker thing was decent, but all the other artwork I thought was and like the first where Lois is getting shot, I thought it was, I don't know, I just thought it was weirdly cartoony and inconsistent with what it was trying to go for. I don't know, I wasn't big on it. I didn't really like the story that much.
I agree with the artwork. Like Jimmy Olsen's face looks like he's more the guy from Mad Magazine.
Alfred Newman, he does.
The page about like basically Toy Man is pretty good. Then the page where it's like that's kind of cartoony is like the one that's 9 panels of Lois dying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like there's that goofy one where she's being eaten by sharks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought like, I
never liked Superman's look. But better than I can draw, so
It was just weird. I think this would have been served better as a short story in a Superman anthology sort of thing. Like that was, maybe not Action 1000, but I don't know, like Batman Secret Files or something, and then you could maybe put a bit more effort into the story. I don't know, but anyway.
But then again, this is a Walmart exclusive, right, or a Walmart released thing. So in the scheme of things, I'm assuming it isn't that important a release.
Yeah, I'm not sure how important or how much canon these Walmart releases are, these 12-page stories.
Yeah.
I mean, people outside of America can't read them, so
that's why there's no really substance to it. Like, it's just, that's why I think this one's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's get back to Superman the movie. We're going to pick up where we left off, which is basically Superman's arrival to Metropolis.
Yeah. So, did you want me to...
Yeah, go ahead and take the lead. I'm fighting this cold, and it's better to not be...
Sure. So, Clark arrives in Metropolis and becomes a reporter at the Daily Planet. He meets and develops a romantic attraction towards co-worker Lois Lane. Lois becomes involved in a helicopter accident where conventional means of rescue are impossible. Clark uses his powers in public for the first time to save her, much to the astonishment of the crowd below. He then... Actually, let's cover up to that. Because there's a lot that happens in that. That's like the first... That's the introduction of Lex Luthor. Introduction of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, the staff of Daily Planet, and everything. So let's do that for now, I think. So I took a bunch of notes. How do you want to proceed?
Shoot from the hip.
Yeah. I got my notes here and everything, and then I think it's a great, because we talked about he flew out of the fortress and it cuts to Metropolis where Clark Kent shows up, and I will say this version of Perry White is my favorite version of Perry White.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's good.
I do like him as well.
And he's barking orders for Lois, and Clark comes in, and it's our first time seeing Chris as Clark, and it's now like the Clark Kent characterization.
Yes,
the bumbly reporter, the hat,
and really well done by Christopher Reeve.
It cannot be undervalued, his ability to play two distinct characters that are believable. And I mean, it's through his acting that you can really lend credit to the idea of a secret identity.
Yeah.
Because I've always been on the side more of that Clark is played like this version of Clark is, and by version I mean the one that he has to share with the public, is played as not too goofy, bumbly that he stands out, but just enough to give off the insecurity that he couldn't be Superman, but just blend in so that nobody would ever think that he's Superman. I mean, especially in a day and age where not everybody has an online presence, their photos are up, they're snapping selfies constantly. Like, you could just kind of blend into the background,
Yeah.
I could watch Clark Kent all day. Like I could just watch a movie where Christopher Reeve is Clark Kent, and it's like a Three Stooges thing. He's just lots of slapstick humor. He's great. He's really funny. He's very endearing as well as Clark, because like even though it's a disguise, you know that is a part of him as well.
Yeah.
Like he does, you know.
Yeah, the way he cares about and talks and interacts with people.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he still
even if
wants
he's doing it
meaningful
to
relationships.
Right. Even if he's just doing it to more of an extreme level to stay under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it's kind of his personal life, really, Clark Kent. So, and yeah, I love Perry White, and you can tell, like we said this in our George Reeves Adventures of Superman episode. You can tell J. Jonah Jameson borrows a lot from Perry White.
Oh yes, yeah,
especially in live action.
I've always said that, Stan Lee had Superman on the brain when he created Spider-Man in his world, because, I mean, it's like, what do you do if you take Superman's values and, like, mindset and color scheme and make Jimmy Olsen a character? And that's kind of what Peter Parker is.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it last episode as well. Spider-Man 1 and 2 feel very akin to Superman 1 and 2, these two movies, and I think this is a very big inspiration as well. I think it's really lame that Metropolis is just New York.
Yes.
Like, there's a bit later when they're flying, and it just shows the Statue of Liberty, and it's like they're not even trying.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't
just New York.
that.
Why do you call it Metropolis?
I said to my friend one time when we were talking, I was like, originally I was like, oh, that's just my headcanon that they were flying so much they flew through New York. But then, but in Superman 2, skipping ahead,
he gets punched into the Statue of Liberty.
Exactly, and it ggets referenced again too. So yeah, they didn't even try to be like, oh, it's an actual different city.
That's funny.
It's just
I didn't notice. I didn't pick that up at all. Like it's it's funny. Like such an iconic thing. You wouldn't you shouldn't have unless they've got a Statue of Liberty as well. You never know. Metropolis, it might not be an exclusive thing.
I think Metropolis is a lot better, and this is one of the things Superman Returns did well was Metropolis.
Yes,
because it felt like Metropolis.
The entire Daily Planet building and everything. Like we actually got the Daily Planet, symbol and everything on top like it should be.
Yeah, and Smallville did a good Metropolis as well, I think.
Yeah. Can I also just say as well, the Metropolis in Superman Returns was unfortunately tainted by the fact that because a lot of it was filmed in Sydney, so a lot of the shots and the scenes were places just in the city that I'm very well aware of. So it was kind of like, Metropolis was pretty much Sydney in Superman Returns. So that kind of took me out of it.
I kind of hear the same thing about The Dark Knight that was filmed in Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight that was filmed in Chicago. Like a lot of the people familiar with the area are like, oh, that's just this place in Chicago or that place. And
that's a shame. So, it takes you out of it. Yeah.
So and that's the one thing you can say Superman Returns got right though is the visuals. The movie is gorgeous, but I mean that's the best part about it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's the hard part about trying sometimes to create these cities where people who are like, oh, I know that filming location, I know that, and you're like, man, you're ruining the movie. But for me, who's been to Chicago, I'm like, hey, it's Gotham.
Oh yeah, absolutely, same as well.
See,
if you don't know the city,
watching Batman Begins, I'm like, oh, this is Gotham City. But watching The Dark Knight, it never felt like Gotham City to me.
Because it just
it's like the city changed.
Yeah, it did because they actually had the Narrows. If I remember right, the Narrows was built on a soundstage. So filming in the Narrows and everything, that was all soundstage work and stuff like that. It wasn't as much locale as The Dark Knight was all locale. But this is
Well, I mean, how easy is it to make Gotham City feel like a place. I mean, the show Gotham, they literally do a panning across the roof, and they add in the gargoyles and the water towers and all that stuff to make it look like what you would think from a comic book page of Gotham City. They do that on a TV budget.
That's what bugged me so much about the Dark Knight is they just didn't bother to make it look like not Metropolis, Gotham at all. Whereas the first Batman Begins really did. So
yeah.
So what kind of story is Lois writing at the start? It's like this really violent.
Yeah.
It's just like so bizarre. It's just really
how many teaser and
violent.
bloodletting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really funny. Like, it was just weird. Just with such a whimsical tone, and it's just like.
Yeah. Are we meant to believe then that she's kind of really like a hard-hitting reporter then from that, or?
Well, I guess it's establishing that this is the real world.
Yeah.
I suppose that they're in now. But it's just kind of funny seeing that in this movie. Anyway, I thought it was funny. I like how Clark's manner of speaking is out of fashion and everything. Like, even back in the 70s, there was in-jokes about how old-fashioned Superman was. And this is like 40 years ago. Yeah, and there's moments where he like looks at the phone booth.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that bit.
Oh, yeah, why would I do that?
Yeah. No, and again, I'm just...
Where they're walking out.
Sorry?
He says, why am I drawing a blank? Dang it.
Says something about something being swell.
Yeah, he says
Swell.
swell. She's like, Clark, a lot of people don't find it comfortable using the word swell. Really? I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
And can we talk about the mugging scene? So,
Okay, from a production value, if you watch that scene, it looks like they're on an actual city street, and then when he gets pulled into an alley, it looks like they're on a set. That could just be like.
I never noticed.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice.
I just thought they were in an alley. Maybe I wasn't examining it hard enough. I was more examining the Lois, literally risking her life.
Yeah.
Like one of the first. Yeah, go on.
I was just about to say, and obviously Wonder Woman made reference to it, right, in the movie? Like,
yeah, direct reference.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the first things the director said, like, even before the movie came out, is she made that scene.
Right.
Except Wonder Woman stops the bullet, and well, Clark Kent does, but he pretends he's not.
Yeah, he pretends. Yeah.
I like that scene because it's really like Clark's right. It's not worth risking your life when you're getting mugged at gunpoint. It's one of the first things you learn in martial arts. If they have a gun, give them what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he speaks. He's very reasonable. What he's saying.
Yeah. And. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought, Lois, you're a bit silly.
Yeah, and then I thought he kind of faffed it a bit, didn't he? At the end, I thought that was a bit corny how he cites everything in her purse, and right down to the detail.
Remember, this is the brainwashed aliens' first day in the real world, so
yeah, fair enough. but it was like he's just calling it out. I mean, that was a bit silly. But anyway, yeah.
And so. We get Lex Luthor's debut, the sequence with the cop called Harry, which is funny.
Which is Richard Donner's cousin.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Because if you pay attention, he appears in every Richard Donner film. He's the police captain in the Lethal Weapon series, and he is
what?
He's one of the professionals in Timeline, and I have not watched Scrooge recently to remember where he's at in that, or The Omen. But yeah,
that's great.
He's his cousin, so he appears in everything,
You gotta love nepotism, eh?
Yeah, it's not Godfather 3 level nepotism, so
yeah, it's like, hey, cuz, I'll just throw you in a small part here. We'll make it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like Superman or anything. You're just going to be this cop.
Yeah.
That appears in a scene only to establish that Luthor's being tracked by the police that never has a follow-up.
No.
You've got to watch The Omen, by the way. I'm just saying.
Has he got a good role in that?
No, I'm just saying The Omen's awesome.
I just haven't,
okay.
I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah, it's just been a number of years since I've seen it.
Oh, okay. Right. So, Lex, we're following around Otis.
Otis.
So I hate Otis. I despise Otis.
Is he accurate? Is he comic accurate or no?
There's no Otis in the comics.
Okay, there's no evidence.
There was no Otis in the comics at that point anyway. People with
he's been there since.
Yeah, people with a bit too much love for these movies have put Otis in the comics. So
yeah,
may they burn for their sins.
He's even appeared as a character in Smallville season 11 comics.
Oh,
I've heard those are really good. Those comics.
They start off really good, then it gets a little shaky, and then they come back pretty good. But
yeah. So, what do you guys think of Otis?
He's comic relief, and I just, I feel like Lex is so smart, like he would want people around, but I feel like no matter who you are, you would be not to Lex's level.
Yeah.
So even normal people would still be inferior. So to have somebody who's that dumb and dumb-witted really is like, it's Lex setting himself up for failure.
Yeah.
It brings me to that line, and this line stuck out to me, and it's said by Lex. Why is the greatest criminal mind of our time surrounding himself with total nincompoops? And I'm like, you know what, Lex? That's a good question.
That is a very good question.
Why are you surrounding yourself with complete idiots? I mean, well, Miss Teschmacher is obviously smarter than she lets on, but Otis is a complete moron.
Yeah, I mean, and someone of Lex's, genius, to me, it was a little wasted because, who he was hanging around with, but he seems to be like hiding away in some, dingy hideout with just these other two people. But he's got these grand schemes and this big scope of what he wants to do. And it, unfortunately, because of the likes of Otis and Miss Teschmacher and where they are, it kind of makes him look comical.
Yeah.
There's too much slapstick between Lex and Otis. So, like, Otis drags Lex down. I mean, like, Otis's theme.
Yeah, I love it.
Like, if you listen to Lex Luthor's theme, it's just that, but slowed down. Like Lex does not. I guess I'll talk about it now. Like, I don't like Lex in these movies because he doesn't come across as threatening.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also worth mentioning and just taking into context the fact that where Lex Luthor was in the comics, at the time of this film, because we hadn't got the reboot where he is the businessman, where he is the
he was
mad scientist. He was just the mad scientist.
He was evil in the comics, though. Like he in the comics, he had stories where, I mean, sure, they're what if stories, but he had that Death of Superman story in the 60s where he kills Superman. Like Lex was a formidable force and foe in the comics. He didn't have an artist doing slapstick with him all the time. Like this Lex, you can have some comedy in there, but he just, I think, was it Bob Fisher? I love Bob Fisher from Superman Forever Radio.
Oh yeah, he's great to listen to. He's
awesome.
Come recommending that podcast. It's like sitting down and just like talking to Superman with your grandpa.
Yeah, he's so knowledgeable as well. It's great, especially his episode on this movie. Christopher Reeve is really good, and he said something in that which I really love. And he said, your bad guy. It's not the exact quote. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said essentially like your bad guy needs to be just as bad as your hero is good. Like he needs to be as evil as he is good. And like you have Prince Charming, and then like the Wicked Witch or whatever. And she was scary as a kid. I was scared as a kid of that witch. I think it was in Sleeping Beauty. And so Christopher Reeve is such a force for goodness, Superman, and and they did this with Zod in Superman 2. Zod was a good anti.
Yeah.
He was a good bad to Superman's good, but Lex is just, he doesn't come across as threatening, and he comes across as evil in a couple of points. There's a couple of moments that are really good, but generally he just comes across as goofy and not really a threat to Superman, and he just doesn't seem as evil as Superman is good. Like, I just think he's a bad villain. Like, period. I don't think it's a thing with the times either. I think it's just bad villain writing. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I'll also mention Gene Hackman wouldn't shave his head. Compare that to Christian Bale and what that man has gone through for his roles.
Why wouldn't Gene Hackman shave his head? Like, it will grow back.
He didn't shave his mustache. He didn't want to shave his mustache either. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's just, it's smart though, that the way they found ways to, work around that, right around that, with the idea he's wearing different wigs and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just bashing on Hackman. Okay. So I want to put since this is probably my introduction to some people, I want to put it out there. I still like this movie, especially if I just turn my brain off and, watch it. But looking at this with a critical eye and an eye as a Superman fan who's experienced lots of Superman since I first saw this when I was 5, I have a lot of problems with it, and a lot of my problems are nitpicks as well, so they're not really that relevant. Like, there's some nitpicks coming up which are not relevant at all, but a lot of them are legitimate grievances I have with the movie. So all I'm saying is don't hate me for
that's why we're kind of discussing it. I mean, we talk about it and praise it for what it is, but sometimes even things that you love and you can kind of take a step back and see its faults in it. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's too sacred to not look at with a critical eye. I mean, there's plot holes and everything in Star Wars, and people love Star Wars. I mean,
people take this as gospel to what Superman is and what he always must be. And
that's where the problem is. I think
it was made quite serious. It was made to be quite serious at the time, and even though it's campy, it was still made to be quite serious at the time for Superman and for superheroes in general. But the character and the portrayal is actually even to the extreme compared to what the comics are in most eras.
I like to think we're doing some sort of service by poking holes in this movie, because people really hold so much Superman content to the standard of this movie. So I think we should point out, hey, this movie is not perfect. If we apply your standards to this movie, we're going to find a lot of problems with it. That's how I went at this anyway. And I know that sounds really spiteful, but
no,
that's just what I'm doing. So.
I mean,
it's also holding because of that level that people hold it to. They're holding the character back.
Yes.
Especially in mainstream media, movies and other things. If it's not this, it's not good, and people want to tear it down.
Even the comics, honestly, it's pretty noticeable sometimes. Especially when writers do stuff like put artists in the book.
Right. Well, they, I mean, it changed Smallville. Smallville was trying to kind of create something of its own, with the shapes and the writing and the different types of mythology. But then when it's going to keep going and going, and then Superman Returns comes out and it's emulating this, they're like, well, no, that's gotta emulate this as well.
Yeah. To be fair on Smallville, though, I think it did a good job.
Oh, it did
towards the end.
It's like my favorite superhero show. I grew up watching Smallville.
I don't think it suffered too much by having the Donna stuff in it. because I feel like it was still enough of its own thing. I mean, how good was Lex Senior in that show?
I mean,
yeah.
Like, seriously.
I mean, John Glover was amazing. Michael Rosenbaum was amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Even Welling as Clark throughout the majority of it was really great.
Yeah.
The supporting cast was great. I mean, Welling's best performances was when he played, Red Kryptonite Clark, or when he played Ultraman. That was like a standout episode.
Yeah.
Or when he got to play Lionel Luthor in Transference. I mean,
that was a
standout
really
performances standout performances in the entire show. So
I like Gene Hackman's Lex, but I don't feel like it's like Lex Luthor to the core. Like, it's definitely a Gene Hackman portrayal of the character, with a little bit more fun. So I enjoyed the character, but even in the comics at the time, it's something different than what we were getting in the comics.
Yeah.
Right. He's still bad. He's still on a scale of trying to kill, hundreds of thousands of people.
Which is where he gets good. It's just undermined by the stupid slapstick, honestly.
It's kind of like that thing about saying you can say whatever you want, but just the way you say it gives the importance. He's been saying, I'm going to murder all these people, and it's just like, and you're like, are you like, you don't know he's serious?
Yeah.
He's so playful. And then he does have his moments where he does say something, and it comes off a little bit more colder, like when the missiles go into Hackensack, New Jersey, and Miss Tetzmacher's like, my mother lives there, and he looks at his watch and he's like just shakes his head, like that's colder Lex. But I mean, why would he have Otis? This
I know
it makes no sense.
It's kind of like he's got no one else, no one better. I mean, but
it's like
that's
he
terrible? That's for
he's
him,
supposed to be really smart. Can he really not get anyone else who will follow him other than this complete moron? Well,
maybe he was his ego maybe isolated him. I don't know, and Otis is the only one that would. I don't know. Just trying to find.
He'd have been better off with the jewel thief climbing the wall. At least that guy's got some technical ingenuity.
Yeah.
So have you guys watched any of Supergirl this season?
We watched the Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Okay.
And then I was comatose for a couple of weeks.
So the first couple of episodes of the season, you get Otis, and
oh wow,
it's a completely different take of Otis as Mercy's brother, which I guess that was done in the comics later at some point, that Otis and Mercy are brother and sister. So it's a completely different Otis that I actually like. And honestly,
he's fully jacked, or
pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Oh, he's a tough guy. He's portrayed as still an idiot. He's not the thinker of the group,
but he's the muscle.
But
you could see why
he's the muscle. He's violent and not slapstick funny.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Luthor. Oh, jeez.
So let's move on to the highlight of Superman's first night out.
Yeah, so the helicopter
kind of loves this
rescue.
Oh, okay, that one. Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I had in my notes. The shirt rip was cool. That's the only note I have about the helicopter rescue.
One of the things I'd say is that what surprised me was how accommodating the citizens of Metropolis took to Superman. It surprised me that they weren't fearful of him, like this guy that, obviously can fly and carry a helicopter. He obviously did a very noble thing, but I guess I've spoken to Connor. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, as we said, it was like it was a different time.
Yeah.
And B, if you have, I think a lot of the movie would have to be taken up.
Yes.
If the public did have a fearful reaction, I think that would become like a subplot in the movie.
Yeah.
And, it also depends on the type of movie you're trying to make,
Yeah.
and I don't think that would have really fit in. Superman 4, on the other hand, where he just steals everyone's nukes and throws them into the sun and everyone's cheering at him. Now that's that's just like, hold on a second. But
yeah. But okay. Well, I mean, but the helicopter thing was quite thrilling, I thought. Real stakes there. Lois, rewatching it again, like, actually literally just dangling out of the helicopter, and then she falls. Yeah, it's you're kind of waiting for Superman to turn up, but it still added quite a bit of tension there.
Now take that context of what you're just saying and think about what I said last time when had we not got that little snippet of him in the fortress and then him flying out of it. If we're watching this and we just see that shirt rip and then he spins around and takes off, and that's your first time seeing Superman in action,
that would be the standing ovation cheering moment in the cinemas.
Right.
Surely. Yeah.
And so we have this scene of Superman doing and I love it because it's like, well, I'm exposed, might as well do some good. Like, I got stuff to do. We see him do the stopping the criminals on the boat who just are trying to get away.
Yeah, that's right.
James mentioned the window guy climbing the building on the glass.
Yeah, the jewel thief.
That guy was up high. How many stories was that guy up? Like, that's
Yeah.
That's
Are we doing a spree of stopping crimes as well?
Yeah.
I mean, we have the stereotypical save the cat in the tree.
Yeah.
Now, can I just point out,
no job too small for Superman.
What made me really laugh, after he saved the cat in the street, the mum's just hitting the girl in the background.
Oh, is that just
telling lies?
Like, watching it now, isn't that cringeworthy?
It's just it is, but it made me laugh and not cringe, I guess, because that's just crazy.
Why are you lying? Smack.
Yeah.
Superman should have turned around and come back and be like, "Excuse me, ma'am." Whap! Don't smack your dog.
Yeah, I guess it was just one of those moments I just chalked up to. It was a different time,
I mean, you kind of have to, because that's just what it was. It was a joke that today doesn't land the way it did then.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Kids lie. They need to get a whooping. Okay. That's my opinion.
I mean, they do, but she wasn't lying. That's the thing.
Well, are they going to believe her at the time?
That's a whole other debate on.
If we're going,
always be a good parent podcast.
If we're going super nitpicky like everyone else does with everything else, that's not this movie. Superman obviously would have heard that, and he just let the girl get hit by her mother.
Exactly. There's the brainwashing. Don't deal with young girls.
I really like the jewelry thief where he's just standing there. I always liked that as a kid.
Wasn't there some Spider-Man? Didn't that happen in Spider-Man as well? Like, you're talking about parallels. Isn't there a bit where he's standing on the facade as well, looking down on someone?
I watched those recently. I can't remember a moment like that.
Okay.
There is a montage of him grabbing jewel thieves and stuff though.
Yeah.
And what was with that line, bad vibrations? I still don't get that. When the guy hits him on the back with the crowbar and he's just vibrating.
I don't know. Could be some pop culture reference there of the time. I have no idea.
I just get because the crowbar, he hits it, just kind of that you hit something, it doesn't the momentum physics bounce back kind of thing. So it's back.
Yeah. But maybe you meant to say bad vibes, vibrations is a bit confusing.
Oh well.
And then
he saves the president.
He saves the president because that's where Lois was going to meet, the president. And lightning strikes the plane. The engine goes out, and Superman shows up and takes the place of the engine and flies it into the airport. And we get the great, I don't know what is it? Just fly. Don't ask.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Just fly.
Yeah.
Does anyone else love that voice? That's like a narrator voice right there. You could narrate a documentary and be awesome. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome, that scene.
Yeah, I love the bit where the cop's talking about Superman. The other cop's like, look, you can get off early, I'll meet you at the bar. And then they just see the boat on the street in front of the police station. I thought that was really cool.
It's pretty awesome, but seriously, Superman just dropping off the boat?
I was thinking exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's going to cause all sorts of havoc with traffic.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring in a crane and everything to move it.
Yeah,
a small one, but still, to bring in a crane in the middle of the street.
That didn't even occur to me, despite my thorough nitpicking of this movie. Good catch. Yeah, do you guys have anything else to say about his first night in the town?
I mean, it showcases Superman in a good light. You know what I mean? He's stopping criminals. He's saving people. He's saving the president in a plane. He's saving a cat out of a tree. I mean, no job too small for Superman.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I guess, it rounds out, as we mentioned in that last episode, this being the third chapter of the movie. So establishing a very urban kind of setting, like in the heart of Metropolis, as opposed to on the farm in Smallville and over in Krypton. So it was good. It just enlarges the whole scope. And then you see Superman doing all these small deeds. And it just expands the canvas, I think, of the whole movie.
Did it make you seethe, Ray, in taking on these street-level crimes?
No, well, you see, I can justify this because, this is the first Superman film, so you've got to establish that. And I'm totally happy to see it, him doing that then. I take umbrage when it happens again and again and again and again. That's all. Like, it's like... There are authorities, and surely they're capable to deal with this sort of stuff as well. But maybe Superman's too quick for them. Maybe he just gets to the punch before them. I don't know.
Maybe you just have terrible taste. I don't know. I'm sure Ray and I will have this discussion yet again.
When it pops up in
episodes,
right? Superman is the ultimate first responder. So
yeah.
He's there before firefighters. He's there before police and ambulances.
But why would he like just let a building burn? Why would he be like, oh, the cops will take care of this? He sees someone in the building. He's like, I got to get them out of there. Like, it's his job.
What if there
Superman's
are
a cosmic fireman?
What if other things happening simultaneously? He's going to have to let things go. He can't do everything.
There's stories. There is stories about that. So
where he does prioritize.
Yeah.
The fire scene in Superman 3 still makes no sense to me. How he puts the fire out, because I feel like it was just a waste of time.
Oh, the lake thing. Yeah.
I'm like, super breath that junk, clap your hands, gust of wind, suck the oxygen out. I just feel like there's a lot of other ways. I'm like, they approach that, but
I thought that was so cool as a kid. So
it was pretty cool, and he did it obviously to just show off. I mean, like in a good way. Like whoever wrote it as well, got to use his powers funky.
So that's got to be kind of a small ecological disaster in the area, though. He froze an entire lake, and
the ecosystem. Yeah, they all died. They all perished in the fire.
Yeah, there's no more lake for the animals or the trees in that area. Like,
that's it.
Like, that's got to be an ecological problem, right? Must there be a Superman?
Do you guys want me to go on to the next section?
Yeah.
Cool. Clark. Clark is the Kate Wonder is made an instant celebrity. Clark visits Lois at her penthouse apartment the next night and takes her for a flight over the city, allowing her to interview him for an article in which she names him Superman. Meanwhile, criminal genius Lex Luthor learns of a joint U.S. Army and U.S. Navy nuclear missile test. He then buys hundreds of acres of worthless desert land out west and reprograms the test's two 500 megaton missiles, one of which to detonate inside of California's largest fault line, the San Andreas Fault, which will cause everything west of the fault to sink into the Pacific Ocean and leave Lex's desert as the new west coast. So obviously there's a lot more that happens in there. But I guess we'll start with the.
Oh, sorry, Connor. Can I just jump in here?
No.
Or unless you wanted to go kind of chronological.
I was going chronological, but if you what was on your mind?
It was just within what you just mentioned. Okay, so as you mentioned, Lex the genius. So is this the same criminal genius mind that came up with how to actually hijack those missiles as well? Because that was one of the most laughable.
Okay, can we get to that when we get to that? Because I have so much to say about that whole sequence as well.
Okay.
Possibly the worst enacted plot. Like Weekend at Bernie's is genius compared to Lex's plan here. So I like the newsroom scene with like Perry talking about, this is the biggest news since God talked to Moses.
My favorite
and Clark's.
My favorite one.
Oh, from the movie?
I love that. Just it's just
he's right.
I mean, it's just fun and
yeah, the whole thing's well delivered. And I like how Clark's kind of sheepishly interjecting, like, I don't think he'd do endorsements, and he's pretty much like, shut up, Ken.
Yeah.
The interview. So the famous rooftop scene, which was the test scene for all the actors for Clark and Lois. So
can I just, before we get there real quick, so Lex's plan, like they never established A, how he has money, and B, how did he buy up this land so fast? That's just like my adult brain working now. Like, that stuff takes time.
Good points. Good questions. Yeah, exactly.
My guess was this has been his plan for a while. I think he only got the other missile, so Superman was so he could distract Superman.
And that's kind of where my mind was. Like he had been planning and working this for a while, but it's still just one of those, like, the way it's presented is like everything takes place in a couple of days, but some of this stuff would take time.
Yeah, that's very much fast tracked.
So we get some nice Lois's watch product placement as she's waiting for Superman. I'm just going to point out any product placement I see. So this interview has all sorts of steamy undertones.
Yes.
Which is, I guess, obviously one of those. Yeah?
Yeah. What do you think of the chemistry between the two? Because this is what kind of, I guess, was the deal breaker for Margot Kidder to actually get it, right? So
I think they have good chemistry together, but on the other hand, I don't really know why Clark is interested in her outside of like a crush. She just seems kind of like a jerk to him all the time. And so the chemistry between the actors is there, but from a writing standpoint, I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of this Lois Lane. She gets better in the second movie.
Yeah. I guess she's
in this
she's
first movie.
Yeah. I mean, she's headstrong. She's clearly intelligent. She's a good reporter, good at what she does. I don't know. Tyler James, how does Lois Margot Kidder rate as your Lois compared to other ones on screen? Is she good, or is she a bit weirdly cast? Or
she works. I think I try to look at the timing of the character, where she was. I think that's always like kind of put ourselves back in that mindset of who this character and what this character was when this version was created. Does she last? Does she still, uphold the character now? And I don't hate her, but I'm not completely in love with her Lois or her characterization. I agree. Like, why is Clark, attracted to her? Why is she the one that he wants to be with, that he's going to risk it all for? But I mean, sometimes I think we're made to overanalyze and look at things that maybe wasn't designed before, so they didn't really like study it the way that we do.
I mean, in the comics back in the 30s and early 40s, like Superman's affection for Lois did grow over time. I thought it was like a pretty nice natural progression. Like he grew to genuinely care for her as opposed to viewing her as, a bit of a troublemaker. So I thought it was really well developed, despite the fact that it was a very old comic. But I guess in this movie, they didn't have that time to have that grow, but they also went with a dynamic where she kind of dismisses Clark a lot. And I don't know, I'm a bit muddled, but
I mean, I feel like this version, like I can see where she would love Superman, but I never feel like where she would fall for Clark, because that's always kind of the thing is he wants to get Lois to love his Clark as much as his Superman, but it's always hard because it's almost like they're two different people that he has to, they try to play it off like in the second one, and that's in the second movie, but because she asked questions.
I mean, she doesn't fall for Clark in the second movie though. She's still like in love with Superman, I guess.
Exactly. And what?
And she doesn't fall for him until she realizes that he's Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, she comes to love him as Clark, which is good. But anyway, let's not get into that. But
we'll hold off for Superman too.
I mean, this version of Lois. I mean, she's and most versions of Lois, she's pretty self-absorbed. She's really in her own world, trying to be the best she can be, and doing whatever it takes to get the story. But I don't know. In this version, she doesn't quite seem like. I mean, she's a good reporter, and they say she's a good reporter, and but she doesn't seem like she's like putting herself in harm's way to get the story and everything until the second one, when she climbs up the Eiffel Tower to get the story and everything else. So
just I don't know, she just comes off as a bit of an airhead sometimes in the first one, especially in the scene coming up. I like Margot Kidder. I'm just not really sold on the whole Lois and Superman thing. It doesn't bug me as much as like Lex, though.
Right. I mean, in the scheme of things, and since different since the character's been played by different people, I mean, I prefer Erica Durance and even Terry Hatcher over Margot Kidder's Lois Lane.
I think Erica Durance and Amy Adams might be my favorite. Erica Durance, I don't know if that's all of my upstairs brain doing the thinking, but I really like her. And I'm keeping it kid friendly, okay?
Erica Durance is my favorite Lois, followed by, Terry Hatcher, because you got to think like the Terry Hatcher version, the show that she was on, like how she plays the character, but does it in the context of the show as well. Because that, show was more fun and more rom-com-y.
I like Dean Cain, but I think she's a better Lois Lane than Dean Cain is Superman, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Can we all agree that none of us like Kate Bosworth? Can we disagree on that? Like,
oh man.
As a Lois, you mean? As a Lois?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I think she's really bad.
I mean,
I prefer Amy Adams as well over Margot Kidder. So, I mean, you got 3 other Lois Lanes above her.
I think Amy Adams is great, and she's my other favorite. In the first movie, I think them getting together romantically is pretty contrived, though. I gotta say, I love Man of Steel, but
I do. I find that the same, but I do appreciate the dynamic where she's actually an intelligent reporter. She tracks him down and finds out who he is right away, and it gives them a dynamic. It doesn't make her seem like a moron. She's one of the most aggressive investigative journalists in the world, and she can't connect the guy who's right in front of her every single day with the guy who's almost in front of her every single day too.
This day and age, there was no other way you can possibly do it. Like, she has to find out who he is if she's seen him up close, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that was done so well. I love her. I just, like, they're just the kiss, and they fell in love through all of, like, really? But, yeah. I think their chemistry's great in 2, though.
Unless
I think
they want to do the 90s version where Clark's glasses are Kryptonian tech and give off a low dose of hypnosis so that nobody sees that he's Superman.
You don't need that. Like, this movie shows that he just acts like completely different and carries himself differently, that he can pass off as a different person.
And I agree with Lois Lane. Like, I almost think that Leslie Ann Warren's Lois in the horrible musical TV version is better than Kate Bosworth. But Amy Adams, I think she's great in Man of Steel, and I feel like she gets like a little worse with each film. Like,
okay.
And I mean, this isn't the Amy Adams podcast. Like, if we went back and like we watched it or whatever and talked about, like, there's parts of BVS where I'm just kind of like, that's but I do agree.
I really liked her in BVS. I guess not to sidetrack too much, but I am curious as to what was worse about her in BVS for you.
There's little parts.
I thought she was
good. Her like how she presents and like her whole. I think part of it's the editing, just because the whole. I still think the Africa stuff is, even in the extended version, the editing and like storytelling there has been cut down to where it kind of throws things off. But I mean, I don't have a problem with her as Lois. She does a good job. And like I said, a lot of it is looking at the lens of the character through the time that it's being presented. I mean, with any of these characters, really, and where the character has evolved, whether or not it's a good version. Unlike you said, like Lex is weird in this because it's not the Lex that we all know, and it's not really exactly where he was in the comics at the time.
Yeah.
So it is a very, like, this is the Lex of this film. Much like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex is Lex of this continuity. But yeah, so let's jump back into the movie before we go on more tangential rides.
So there's the interview itself. As I said, there's steamy undertones, which is, adults sort of found very amusing and kids would have been oblivious to. And some of these answers really made me laugh. Like, I love how he's just like, I can't see through lead.
Yeah. Let me just tell you a weakness I got. I can't see through lead. And she's like, that's interesting. Well, let's not put that in the article. Duh.
The best line is, I never lie. Man, your life is a lie.
But
he's like, I never lie.
He lies every day.
He pulls an Obi-Wan Kenobi. He doesn't lie from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. Obi-Wan is the villain of the original trilogy.
Because he doesn't lie when he's Superman. Doesn't say he doesn't lie when he's Clark Kent. Okay? There's some dissecting in these words that can be done. But as far as the interview scene goes, I think Chris's acting is amazing. He just radiates the confidence of the character. He's having fun with Lois because he realizes that she's like intimidated and intrigued and attracted to him, and
he doesn't like her smoking.
Yeah, he gets to be like confident and kind of be himself because now, like, we've already seen how she feels and acts towards Clark. Now let's see how she acts towards Superman.
So, and he says the line, and I guess Ray and I will be going into this a bit in our next episode, but he says, I stand for truth, justice, and the American way. Now, as like, so Ray, you commented before how it annoys you when, like, especially like shots in Spider-Man movies where Spider-Man will just be like in front of the American flag and stuff. How do you feel about, especially in this scene, like him just saying, "I believe in truth, justice, and the American way"? Like, does it feel a bit out of nowhere to you? Or?
No, actually, no. I wouldn't give it really a second thought about that. I think that was fine. And I just want to be clear as well, especially to Tyler and James as well. There's nothing against the American flag. It's like if there's any flag, you know, that is like, you know, if it was an Australian film and Spider-Man's there and he does a dramatic pose in front of the Australian flag. That's kind of what I go, oh, okay.
No, I get it, because Superman, the characters, the truth, justice, and American way has kind of always been ingrained in his identity as being like the idea of the ultimate immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of the American way in which he's discussing, you can argue no longer really exists in today's culture. Yeah. That's why that's been slowly taken out to just truth and justice. And, you know,
they brought it back though recently in the current run.
Yeah.
Which is which brings out conflicted feelings in me. But anyway.
About moving the character forward and taking him 2 steps back. Like, we moved away from truth or from the American way. Oh, we got to put it back because that's Superman. Well, you know what? I want him to leap over tall buildings again, okay? I want the regular aspect. If we're going to take him back, let's take him back.
Yeah.
Exactly. The American way didn't come until the George Reeves show, didn't it? Or was it the radio serial?
I think
either way, it wasn't.
It
wasn't there in the cartoons or
the radio.
The comics
did more
pages.
for Superman than people realize.
Oh, definitely. Kryptonite, Perry White,
even the Daily Planet.
Yeah.
Because before then it was George Taylor of the Daily Star. But what else, you know, that whole thing, like, you know, with Superman by the American flag, okay, I can get that. Because, I mean, there's a lot of classic covers of him during, you know, the World War II era and stuff with the American flag. But for a character like Spider-Man, like, I think, like in the Raimi Spider-Man film, that was put in as like a thing to reflect on America, because if you guys remember, the original teaser for Spider-Man was he webbed the Twin Towers together. And stop robbers. And then 9/11 happened and they had to take that out. So I think in the context of that film, the American flag was just kind of a nod to New York, to America during the, you know, right after, I mean, 9/11 was September. That film came out in May. So, you know, that was added later in post. But no, I get what you're saying, because I wanted to ask you guys, you know, just from the point of view that the character has evolved, trying to be more of a character that's a world symbol and not so much an American symbol, you know, being from Australia and this character, like the American stuff that's put in there, how you guys see that compared to, we just kind of sometimes take it for granted.
I mean, I understand Superman being patriotic. Like, it doesn't bug me.
Yeah.
Because as we say, he's the ultimate immigrant. You know, he believes in this country or what the country's capable of. It's just from Superman's inception, like even in the very early Golden Age issues, he didn't limit himself to America. He was always going overseas to solve problems and stuff. So for me, like, the core of his character is worldly. Like, the American way stuff is like an addition in my head. Like, if that makes sense, because
I'd agree as well. It's just because, I mean, like, his formative years were spent growing up in America, so of course you can't help but have some sort of connection there. It's
I don't mind it at all.
An issue.
It only bugs me if it stops him from like going overseas or something, because, as I said, he was doing that from the start, and I don't like characters taking steps back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this would go into, like, this train of thought will lead into Dark Knight Returns, Superman being used as a corporate symbol, his return to the Golden. So, like, that's a whole episode. So I'll just stop there.
No, I mean, you're fine because that's kind of the mindset of, like you said, Dark Knight Returns, that, it was kind of like, hey, we need to revamp these characters and kind of where they've gone. And what's crazy is, I've said this to people, and I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent here, but so many people have had this quote unquote issue with the way Batman was portrayed in BVS. And I'm like, it blows my mind because it's so much lifted out of like the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
And like so many comic lovers praise that and worship the ground that book walked on. That it kind of just blows my mind that people had an issue with it. Cause I'm like, I mean, there's comparisons online of like panels from the Dark Knight Returns against shots of BVS where I'm like, I just, like I had a friend who was like, I didn't like this in that movie. And I was like, dude, here, look at read this book. And then he came back to me like, oh yeah, you're right. I see what inspired this character. I'm like, yeah. So I think it's just interesting that today in like the 2016, 2019, whatever, we're pulling from like these 80s sources for our comics. That I feel like the 80s was much more a different time, but like what they were kind of doing with the 80s is kind of we're away from, like the revamp.
Yeah.
We don't need to revamp them as much as we just need to tell the stories of who they are.
Yeah.
All right, rant over.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So in avoiding risks of other tangents, I suppose.
Is that possible? Are we able to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I want to talk about Lois's watch. No, I'm joking.
So Superman flies up with Lois into the sky. I've always thought this scene was boring and weird.
Yes. The music's beautiful. I love John Williams' score.
Oh, yeah.
But as soon as she starts talking because she can't sing, I'm done. Like, seriously.
Can you read my mind?
Yeah, it really should have. It should have been them flying around, the music playing, and then coming back. Just them having that moment. Should have been like a whole new world for Superman and Lois, and that's it. As soon as she starts talking, I'm like, all right, click, next scene.
Yeah. And this is where the Statue of Liberty pops up in Metropolis. How did that get there? And so what I found really funny, another really funny thing, is she's like, oh, should I put something warmer on? And Superman's like, you won't be cold. And then he flies above the clouds. I'm pretty sure she'd be cold.
She would be freezing.
There's that really weird part where she like falls.
Yep.
And he kind of
and she's all
like, I get her.
She's screaming like horribly, and then he just grabs her, and she's just serene immediately. And I don't understand why that's there. Like, why does she fall? It just breaks the scene weirdly, and
it's weird. I mean, because when I first saw this one, I was really little as well, and being a young kid and wide-eyed and all that. I guess, you just don't question it all that much back then. And it was just a little break. It was just a little bit of tension because...
That's true. It might add a bit of a gasp for the audience.
Exactly. I mean, but obviously, look, we're looking at it with far different eyes. And, a lot of it doesn't make sense. Like even the fact where they're just touching each other's fingertips and she's flying. I don't understand how that
I don't understand the physics of that. I mean, at least with the warm part is supposed to be because he is so naturally warm. Because he draws the sun's energy and he doesn't get cold. Like it's supposed to be like he's warm next to her. And but even then, like, she's still gonna be cold in her like nightgown. Because if he was that warm all the time, she'd like Clark would be walking around in shorts and a t-shirt.
Sweating all the time. Just constantly sweating.
Hey, Clark, are you okay? It's -5. Are you in Ohio? No, I'm good. I'm good. Lois. It was just I had to, I'll be back. So,
So my favorite scene in the movie is he drops Lois back off, blah 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 blah, and sorry, I just wanted to get to the bit that I like. So Clark comes to the door, and she lets him in, and he's kind of contemplating whether he tells her or not.
Yeah,
and he takes his glasses off and stands up straight, and. Then he hunches back over again and puts his glasses on. And it is such an awesome transformation between two completely different characters. Like, he looks like a different person.
Exactly.
When he stands up straight. It's insane. It's my favorite scene in the movie. No one has done it better. Like,
he completely embodied two completely different characters.
Yeah, and all he did was stand up and change his manner. Like, it was... I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He had some look in his eye, I guess. You can just tell it's Superman, and then you can tell it's Clark. A little bit more sheepish. Yeah.
And they're both him. And I get the feeling like he's more Clark Kent, really, because he does lose confidence in himself and decides not to tell, and he kind of withdraws. My next note is this Lex slapstick. Sigh. Did you guys have any other thoughts about this magic romantic evening?
No, I mean, it's like becoming such a staple in Superman, like culture and mythology that like that's their first time. The big article that Lois writes about him.
Yeah.
And I just, like you said, I think some of the questioning, like, was kind of like, oh, okay, like, yeah, of course you're an alien, cool. Of course you can't
I'm from Krypton,
Yeah,
Krypton, is that what they say? K? Oh,
yeah.
But it's fun. I enjoy it. Like, but yeah, I mean,
is it kind of like is it a nod to that? Like, does Superman whisk Lois away a lot? It just seems to. I get a sense of
since the film.
Okay.
I've read comics. I've looked at the shows and stuff in the past, but I'm not as super versed in all of it as I would like to be one day. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like. But I mean, if you look in like even in the more recent run when they did the Superman Reborn story. One of the cover arts when they were, kind of pulling that together was him saving Lois out of from the helicopter and kind of pulling stuff back together. So
yeah,
it's this whole little interaction of them has become almost canonical.
Which I hate. I'll just point out. I'm not big on the helicopter rescue being a thing in comics. In fact, I think it was one of you questioned me on Twitter because I was really angry that day, and I was saying I really hate Secret Origins.
That was me.
Because
I hadn't read it so long, so I was just like curious about what part it was that you.
It's just like a really bad adaptation of this movie and the Silver Age stuff that Jeff Johns likes, but it comes across with no feeling and development of the character. And I'm just super angry that it replaced Birthright and Man of Steel in canon.
Yeah.
And
I'll say this, what I didn't like about it just off the top of my head was I'm not a fan of like the Legion of Heroes. Like I really don't care about them.
Yeah, same.
And
I know that's like sacrilege sometimes, but
the whole idea that they took him and like took Superman as a boy, Superboy, took him to the future. He did adventures and trained and learned stuff, then came back. Is this very weird kind of Terminator 2, like creating your own self kind of thing?
Yeah.
Where he goes to train with heroes that were inspired by him, who trained him to come back to be the hero. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the artwork makes everyone look like a weird Frankenstein version of the characters in this movie.
It's beautiful artwork, and I really like it. But at the same time, it is like somebody said, "Hey, just draw Chris," and that's what we do.
Right.
It just comes off as off to me. Like, I like the art in general, but like the faces feel off to me. But yeah. Anyway, I just don't like when they use like the lore from this movie in comics. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
No, I can see that. I mean, like, it is only just like one movie. I can't believe it's had such a far-reaching, like into comics as well. Like, it's quite amazing.
All the other Origin comics I've generally liked better than this movie. I've liked all the other Kryptons better and stuff. But anyway, do we want to talk about Lex's ridiculous plan to get the missiles?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And what was that? Really so the first part of his big plan is he has Miss Teschmacher fake an accident, and so the soldiers surround her, and they're like trying to give her CPR or whatever, but it comes off as really weird.
Yeah, because you have the I'm pulling rank, like guys turn around while I do this. Like, it looks like they're about to do something else.
Yeah, it does.
It very much is like sexual assault.
Yeah,
at that point.
Very awkward to
I've
watch.
also never seen a car wreck or accident where the person's like laying out in front of the car, where there's not a busted windshield and they're not bloody.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has no scratches.
No, exactly.
Like, this attractive woman's laying on the side of the road where nothing's going on with her car. Let all of us lonely males can make a bunch of comments and,
It's like they believe that she's like unconscious and they're just using it as an excuse to feel them up. I don't know. It was just weird. And for some reason, he gets Otis to get the missile codes, and shockingly, it doesn't work.
Surprisingly, mate.
And do they ever go back to the first missile and fix this? Because
why wouldn't they have? Why wouldn't Lex have been the one to input the codes? He left that to Otis. Just to yell at him and hit him in the eye because he shows up with a black eye. Yeah. But why would Lex, like, Otis, you're a moron. You drive ambulance. Yeah. And I'll input the codes.
Exactly. The level of risk that he is laying by assigning that to Otis, I mean, surely his best laid plans would just be, Anyway, it is crazy.
Yeah, so that first missile messes up, and I don't see them going back to fix it. They just go on to the next missile.
Oh, okay, they go to the next one. Yeah.
But I really love seeing Lex, like, with that big hat. Like, the big tall hat. I don't know, that really makes me laugh.
Trucker Lex.
Yeah, when he's driving the truck and he just has that stupidly tall hat on. So, that whole sequence is stupid.
I think that this is the, I don't know, the weakest part, I think, of this whole movie for me. It's just the most ridiculous bit.
I'm going to say
it's ridiculous and overplayed.
I'm going to say this, and it's horrible. Because
poorly thought out.
I love Chris as Superman. I love everything that he does in his scenes. But once he has his first night out in the interview, I feel like the rest of the movie starts to kind of just fall apart. And I can't pinpoint it. And I think I'm waiting for this one podcast I listened to, Cape Wonder.com, because they're diving in more to the film and they have like resources that the average person doesn't have. Because as you may or may not know, like Superman 1 and 2 were written as one film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in post-production, they changed things. And I know we're going to get to it here in a minute. But basically the turning back time was supposed to be the ending of Superman 2. And if you ever watched the Superman 2 Richard Donner cut, that film starts like in a weird place because basically he starts with where he would have wanted his film to end. Because the original ending of Superman was supposed to be he stops the one missile, he pushes out into space and it goes out and
Yes.
It explodes and breaks open the Phantom Zone, releasing Zod and all of them. And they're coming to Earth, and they're like, you know, it was supposed to end with Zod yelling "free," and then like we were going to have Superman 2, and then you know we had that whole debacle of what happened, and then because what my question was, and I sent on Facebook to the gentleman who do the podcast was, if that was the initial case, where's the whole Lois death scene and everything come from? Because I feel like that's some of Chris's best acting. And they said, we're going to get there, so just keep listening. And I was like, okay, cool. So I wonder if that has parts to play into this, because I love what he does as Superman, but for some reason, as the film progresses from this point, I'm not as interested in the overall like I was at the beginning. I mean, I'm loving what I'm seeing when he is Superman and Clark, but at the same time, I feel like we've now into another film, because now all of a sudden we get Lois is out in the desert investigating the land deal. You know, Jimmy and Clark are in New York, and you know, Lex did the missiles. Lex calls out Clark, and I think, you know, and in the extended cut, the director's cut that a lot of people have now, it's more readily available. We have the awesome gauntlet scene of him walking down to Lex and being shot at, the fire, the freezing, all that was cut in the theatrical release, which makes no sense because that's Superman stuff. Like you cut.
Yeah, that was really cool.
You don't cut like the action. Okay. You ever rent a movie or anything and watch the deleted scenes? It's not an action movie that had a lot of special effects that's, you know, deleted.
Yeah.
So it's weird that was out of it in the initial release. And it's also like taking a huge leap how Lex works backwards and figures out his super hearing and kryptonite.
Yeah. So should I summarize the rest of the movie?
Yeah, I know I kind of did a lot real quick there.
Yeah, no worries. So, knowing Superman has the capability to stop his plan, Lex deduces that the meteorite found in Addis Ababa is actually part of Krypton and is radioactive to Superman. After he and accomplices, Otis and Eve Teschmacher, retrieve a piece of it, Lex lures Superman to his underground lair, reveals his plan, and exposes him to a mineral from the meteor piece, kryptonite, that weakens Superman immediately. Lex further taunts him by revealing the other missile is headed in the eastbound direction towards Hackensack, New Jersey. Teschmacher is horrified because her mother lives in Hackensack, but Lex does not care and leaves Superman to die a slow death. Knowing his reputation for keeping his word, Teschmacher rescues Superman on the condition he will stop the eastbound missile first. Superman reluctantly agrees. Teschmacher frees him from the kryptonite, and then Superman diverts the missile into outer space, consequently preventing him from reaching the other missile in time. The other missile explodes in the San Andreas Fault. Massive earthquakes erupt across California, damaging the Golden Gate Bridge and causing the Hollywood sign and Hoover Dam to collapse, endangering lives. Superman mitigates the effects of the explosion, getting rid of the fallout and building up the crumbling land in the fault line, preventing the collapse. While Superman is busy saving others, Lois's car ends up falling in a crevice from one of the aftershocks. It fills with dirt and debris, and she suffocates. Angered at being unable to save her, Superman defies Jor-El's earlier warning not to manipulate human history, preferring to heed Jonathan's advice that he must be here for a reason. He accelerates around the Earth, traveling several minutes back in time to save Lois. After saving the West Coast, he brings Lex and Otis to prison. Then he flies into the sunrise for further adventures. So Lex's part where he gives the message to Superman, and he's like, if you don't come to meet me, I'm just going to poison everyone. I thought that was awesome. I'm like, now this is Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that's a lot more diabolical. Yeah,
definitely. And these lies mean nothing. He's just like, I will kill all these people if you don't come and meet me. And, you know, even the dialogue that follows up after that where Superman's like, is this how you get your kicks? playing the death of innocent people, and Lex is like, no, it's causing the death of innocent people. It's just so evil, and it's great.
Yeah.
Like that is actually, this guy is a psychopath, and those are the moments where I think he really shines as Lex. And those are probably the only moments I think where he shines as Lex. Aside from what you mentioned before, Tyler, about Miss Teschmacher's mother and him just not caring that she's there. Oh yeah, and when sorry, before I forget, he jumps out the window right as Clark Kent.
Yep.
In an awesome, in a fantastic scene where Perry's like, "You've got loads of humility. Your problem is you don't have guts." I love that whole exchange between them, but like he just changes into his Superman costume while he's falling down. Did you guys think that was really weird?
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
It just kind of dissolves, like, like it just dissolves, and then he's just flying, and
I think it was just in the too hard basket for the writers. I think it was just.
I mean, at least in Superman Returns, we have that scene where he's in the elevator and he takes out flying up, and you see him rip his suit off, and it goes falling to the ground, and he flies out. And then you have like the Zack Snyder where he's like, you know what? We'll just never have him in regular clothes change into Superman. We'll just save that for the final scene of Justice League where he rips open his shirt. No one will question it.
Awesome scene.
You know what I'm saying? Because it is one of those things like, and I said this about Supergirl, and I've joked with my wife, like some of the outfits that Supergirl wears is like really tight pants and shirts. And then she'll do the shirt rip, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way her costume's under that clothes.
Yeah.
Her costume is a skirt and a cape and those boots, okay? Like, there's no way that costume is under her clothes. Okay? Now, that is one thing that I think the writers, when they did the New 52, were like, all right, how can we fix this by making his costume alien technology? And he's got basically like a little patch on his chest that has like the alien technology that comes out to form his costume of Kryptonian armor, which I thought was neat just because it made his costume a little bit more to his home world.
Yeah.
And that got around the whole wearing his costume under his clothes, like, this cape, these boots and everything. So
I never had a problem with him just like stuffing his clothes into some weird pouch in his cape that you never see. I just took that explanation and ran with it. I don't know if you remember that one. He's like, I just stuffed my clothes into this compartment in my cape. And, yeah.
I mean, it works. Comic logic on film, it might be a little different, but,
Yeah. Well, it would work better than what we got.
Yeah, that was there.
Which is just weird. Like transformation, dissolving his clothes or something. Like super speed, maybe. I don't know.
It doesn't work. It's just to be like, just like in Superman 2 where he.
Yes, I know what you can say. Yeah,
he runs out and he's running, and he like does this really weird. I don't even know what you call it. Like where there's like multiple versions of like where he's supposed to be moving so fast, he's staggering and his clothes just disappear and he flies off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I thought you were going to bring up him throwing the S shield.
Yes, I was about to say that.
That's a whole nother ball game of looting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What was it, Family Guy who did a skit of that, and he throws it at Zod, and Zod gets up and he's like, "Hey, that was mildly annoying. Why did you do that?"
Yeah. That was very strange, I must say. Changing. Maybe he's just super speed. Maybe he went to a locker somewhere, just too quick for our eye to catch. Yeah, he changed.
Let's just make up whatever. What's in that lead box? You're trying to hide it from me by putting it in this lead box. Whoops.
And I mean, it kind of goes to show, like, one, Superman's kind of arrogance in a sense of, like, he didn't know that he had a weakness because, was that never in his Fortress brainwashing about the idea of kryptonite? And then Luthor's just quick deductions of figuring it out. But, he's just like, what is this? And then it's like, oh, snap, what is this? Like, this green, shiny, what is it doing to me? He had no idea that kryptonite was even a possibility, compared to on Smallville, where he should be weary of kryptonite constantly, because it's everywhere.
Just walking down the street and collapse.
It's even in the water.
Oh, man, that was my biggest problem with Smallville, bar none, is how much kryptonite there was around. Like, too much kryptonite in that show. And
it sounds like a good premise, though. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the show, so
it's just, yeah. I mean, Ray, as we mentioned before, Ray is a newbie to Superman. Well, he's becoming less newbie pretty rapidly, but and he's a fan of kryptonite, whereas a lot of people hate the idea of kryptonite. Because it's overused. In Smallville, it is a very overused concept. The idea is there was a meteor shower that masked his ship's entry into Earth, and the meteor shower was the particles from Krypton. So there's literally kryptonite scattered all over the entire town of Smallville. Yeah, and it's what also caused the Freaks of the Week characters. So every time there was a character, their abilities were derived from some sort of from some reason. The kryptonite was able to generate these abilities depending on the situation that they were in at the time when the meteor crashed or something. As the show went on,
that sounds very similar to something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
and I mean, last thing about kryptonite was just, the idea in Man of Steel was there was no kryptonite, and how would that look, and what would that be like to have Superman without the idea of a weakness being around?
And then they just brought it in.
And then, of course, they had to bring it in because if he's going to fight Batman, that's the only way Batman can have any kind of edge on him. Yeah. So of course we have to have kryptonite, but that's enough.
I still find the idea of the way that they brought it in very well, that it was generated, by trying to transform the planet into Krypton, and the fact that because of that, it is extremely rare. It's not like everybody can get a hold of kryptonite now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like
so Batman just makes a spear out of it.
Yeah, I'll say there's like one chunk. So I'm
it was just the BVS was disappointing. There was a lot of disappointing decisions behind it. Like they did a lot of things they said they wouldn't do for that movie. Like, like they wouldn't bring Batman in, they wouldn't bring Krypton in, and they just did all those things. But anyway, different podcast.
Well, then the movie's third act had to suffer because people freaked out about the destruction that Zod caused to Metropolis. So, I mean, that stretched over into Ultron, made the Age of Ultron, made the third act of Age of Ultron be the Avengers saving people instead of fighting an army of Ultron soldiers.
Because I've said like the fight that Superman has against Zod, is like how the fight should have been against Doomsday. Like a really brawl, but whatever. Yeah. Back to Superman the movie.
Yeah, the right before we go back, I'll just say Superman vs. Zod was more like the Doomsday fight than the Doomsday fight. You're completely right about that. With the scale, anyway. But so Superman's dying from the kryptonite, and Miss Teschmacher saves him. Now, what I like about this is Superman is really upset because not because he's dying, but because he can't save. He can't save the people. And I thought it was a really awesome. It's a really good moment. I don't know. It just shows that Superman puts everyone else before himself. Yeah, like he's in this dire situation, and all he can think about is, these people are going to die if I can't help them. Yeah. And she makes him promise to save her mother, which is another thing I like. He actually keeps his word and does it, even if it means he can't get to his friends.
Yeah. Look, have you ever seen How It Should Have Ended on YouTube?
That was
how
pretty
Superman the movie should have ended. You mean these two missiles?
Yeah,
What
Lex is
happened?
like, he's like, I bet you're not fast enough to. You're not fast enough to catch these two missiles, and Superman just comes back with the two missiles, and he's like, really? These two missiles? Yeah, you got to go watch that. It's the same stuff as the Super Cafe stuff I was telling you about.
Okay, yeah, right.
It's
they do
how
that
it should have
afterwards.
ended. Yeah, type in how it should have ended on YouTube, and they have a whole channel. And I mean, how so many movies should have ended. I mean, and it's all comical stuff. You know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff that people have nitpicked because they take a lot of fan ideas and generate this funny cartoon. And I mean, it's every comic book movie pretty much. It's Star Wars. It's Disney movie.
All the franchises, right? Like Lord of the Rings, stuff like that.
So
Yeah, Jurassic Park even. And
Lord of the Rings is in it, I believe.
Every comic book one ends with Superman and Batman talking about it in the cafe, which is pretty fun.
they're sitting in the cafe with whatever superhero it is, you know, with Aquaman, with the Avengers. Yeah. They even have, I'm pretty sure in Homecoming, it's one of the Spider-Man ones, and it's post Spider-Man 3, and they've even got Tobey Maguire doing the stupid dance behind the window, and they're like, at least it's not, you know, this or that, and then they show that. So
that was terrible. I didn't like that at all.
I watched Spider-Man 3 recently, and it's not bad. It's good. It just has some problems like that scene. But anyway, so I like how the final boss of the movie is an earthquake. I think that's really cool.
Because like Lex he's kind of already put out to pasture his little plan. And he's still got
Superman has to combat an earthquake, essentially.
Yeah, he's still got the climax to go. So I guess the big thing, the earthquake and the Axis. Earth's Axis.
So, before we get to the Axis, I just thought when he stops that town, like he created the dam, did anyone think that was like changing the course of mighty rivers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was.
And I also just wanted to point out, like we had said before,
he's an eco-terrorist. Sorry.
The fact that Jor-El's whole warning about, you know, changing the course of human history. Hello, you're an alien who just proved that aliens exist.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I'm sure that's a pretty big chunk of human history. Or
that is.
You know, even you saving people is like, if you're looking at it from a mathematical statistics point of view, you are the variable that can't be calculated. Like you just showing up has now changed people's lives.
Yeah.
So that whole thing just makes me mad because it's stupid. Like,
So, I guess we're talking about the Axis thing now, aren't we?
Yeah,
unless you guys had anything to add about the earthquake or anything else.
We see a lot of cool Superman rescues, like the train.
Yeah.
Like you said, the fixing of taking care of, the dams. You know, Jimmy Olsen.
When he goes into the fault, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, when he actually lifts like a tectonic plate.
Yeah.
And sets it back in place.
See,
the feat of strength right there.
This scene inspired, like, I like to sometimes sit around and like think of if I was making a sequel or writing a film, like, what would I do? And I was talking before, like, if I was, say they were going to do a Justice League 2 film, I think it'd be cool. My opening scene would be like a tsunami or a natural disaster like this, and the Justice League rescuing people from a town with experiencing a natural disaster, like just seeing, the Flash like running on water and getting people out, Superman freezing part of the water, Aquaman, just controlling the water, Superman stopping an erupting volcano, stuff like that. That would just be
we can relate to it a lot
to
more.
Watch these heroes do without them having to face some sort of like villain, like they're using their skills to stop a natural disaster and rescue people, and just what that would look like as a really cool opening sequence.
Yeah, it would look great.
Yeah.
I would love to see like how they would do it and stuff. Please give us another Superman movie with Henry Cavill. Please.
Didn't Jason Momoa say that he's going to be appearing again or something like that?
Yeah, like Jay. But I mean, he's just an actor. But
I know.
Yeah, he said he loves the character and he's not done with the character. But obviously, that's between Henry, his agent, and the studio.
I think the most recent. Go on.
No, I was saying my thing is right now, I just don't care or believe anything until it's in front of a camera.
Yeah,
just because there's been so much stuff like this person said this or this, and this is in pre-production, and we're going to look at making this, and
the internet as well. It's like wildfire. Just all this speculation.
It's insanity. The only concrete thing for me is Henry Cavill's agent said he isn't hanging up the cape. Like that's the only concrete thing that's actually come from his agent, and that was shortly after there was the quote unquote rumors that Henry Cavill was never playing Superman again, and for some reason those rumors have persisted despite the agent saying that's not the case. So I don't know, but yeah, all we can do is hope, really. Moving on to cheerier topics. Okay, my next note is Lois's death, but
I got you.
It's a bad way to die.
Yeah, it's quite a stressful scene.
Being buried alive, yeah.
So she suffocates and dies, and so now and you're totally right about this, Tyler. I think this is some of his best acting.
Oh, I mean, I love when he screams, and when he screams and flies up, and I love it. But what I hate in this scene is he's flying with such intensity, and then it cuts to Jor-El talking, and he stops. Just for fun, I had to make my own edit of that where I took out him stopping, and it's just him flying straight up, and he flies into space and starts spinning it backwards. And then I just put that Jor-El over top of him, what he's doing. That would have been as in the idea of his father's words are in the back of his head as he's doing this. And he's defying it. Other than he's flying angrily, he stops in the sky. He looks around as he hears this thunder, lightning, Jor-El's voice, and then starts flying again. I think it undercuts the emotional momentum of the scene.
That scream he does is fantastic, and I wonder if people in other countries heard that scream. But unfortunately, the context of the scene, I think, sucks. This is my biggest problem with the movie, is this solution. So, I mean, he turns back time to save Lois's life, and it just, you're here for a reason and stuff. That undermines the whole point of his dad dying, teaching him mortality. Yeah. It's why will he just do this every time?
Yeah. Does he regret it at the end or anything like that? Or I can't remember.
No.
He doesn't. So he just does it and that's it. And
it's for happily ever after. And it's just look, I get suspension of disbelief, but this is way too much. This, and I get turning your brain off. Yeah, it is awesome. It's an awesome. Now, obviously, the original use of this was at the end of Superman 2. And from what I read, feel free to correct me on this, is the planet was destroyed and Superman reversed time to fix it.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be more devastation from him versus the Kryptonians.
And that, I'd be fine with that. But just, and over the death of one person,
that's true.
I don't know.
And even the person, I get it's Lois, but I haven't really bought their relationship. You haven't sold me on their connection. It just seems more like it's Clark's obsession with her. I don't see her side of it,
Yeah. And so I guess that brings to the thing, the original ending is he just stops the missiles. But what's the emotional crux of the movie then if Lois Lane doesn't die is my big question. Unless he just gives her like super CPR instead, should probably be a better solution. But
it's one of those things like I don't know, because maybe there was more to it that was never filmed, or something, because they had to assemble the first film because supposedly it was done and put it out, but yet we know the ending was kind of compromised, and maybe there was going to be more to it, and even in the Donner cut, like it states like unused footage and test screens and all this to kind of bring the Vision to life as much as could, because he didn't get to shoot all the footage he wanted to for his Superman 2. So maybe there was something that just never was released, that would have been more of that.
And then we can talk about like the literal aspect of what people are like, oh, he's spinning the world back on its axis.
Yeah, so that makes no sense.
The idea of him turning back time, it's visually shown that the world is spinning backwards because he's going back in time. The obviously he can't do that if he were to stop the rotation of the world. I mean, the implications would be that the rest of the everything on the world would end up being destroyed from stopping its rotation. But then he actually has to. They show him turn and make it go back the other way. Like if he were just to travel back in time and go around in the visual representation of the world going backwards, it would just stop and start rotating the other way again. But why did he actually have to start it going back?
I always saw that as like he was sort of stopping himself, like from going too far back, like he was sort of like maybe like he was going back and then he just went forward again to go back to normal time flow, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with this scene. I mean, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but honestly, it's close. Like that's how much I have a problem with this scene. Like for me, I don't understand the moral message of this,
and I don't understand the consequences. I mean, at least, man, Ray, spoilers, okay, bro? I'm sorry. All right.
No worries.
In Smallville, when Jonathan Kent in the 100th episode, Lana dies, and Clark, he uses his Kryptonian powers to go back in time, and Jor-El says there's consequences. There's a price to pay. And what happens is it changes the events of that day, and Jonathan Kent's the one that ends up dying. That's a much stronger lesson that he learns about mortality, about time travel, and his limits. What does Superman learn here? Like, oh, I didn't catch that person. They splattered. Be right back. Let me go spin the Earth back. What's the problem where he couldn't do that as a quick fix for everything?
Yeah, exactly. It does. It does open up a whole can of worms, really.
It completely undermines Jonathan Kent's funeral scene, which was really powerful because he learns he can't save everyone. But then it's like, well, no, I can do it free of consequence and just keep going back in time. Like even in the comics, he went back in time a lot, but he was never able to make permanent changes. He went back in time to Krypton once, but he still couldn't save it. So
look, I think the thing it comes down to also, I mean, but we've covered this, and I think Tyler, you mentioned how it hasn't totally been formed properly in the movie, is that it kind of shows the power of love, really, really, in the fact that he'd do anything for Lois, but exactly as you say, I don't. It hasn't been developed properly, I think, in the film, for him to actually care so much about her that he would actually literally turn back time for her. So it's a very selfish thing that he does.
And he should care about everyone that much, really, because it does come across as selfish.
Had it been something that happened to Lois, like in this second part, after we've really built this relationship, they've had time to where the second one goes with her finding out and all that type of stuff. And then he makes the decision to do it, would make more sense, because
absolutely, I reckon I'd agree.
There's weight to them, and the fact that his choice would be compromised because he's doing that, and he's already, done so much and sacrificed so much for others that the idea of him making a selfish choice is he can kind of shrug it off. And I mean, and it's kind of hard to talk about some of this stuff without talking about Superman 2 because it was conceived as one giant movie kind of broken into two parts, because a lot of this stuff is addressed in some way in Superman 2. Right or wrong, it's debatable. So,
I mean, studios can make it. They can make a mess. They can make a meal of movies, really. And I guess this and trying to work out between Superman 1 and 2, and what eventuated, they made a bit of a meal of it.
I mean, they've just tried. They wanted to have Superman display like a big show of power at the end. And this fit the bill, but this scene just doesn't. I mean, I'm gonna have to plant the disagreement card. I don't think him doing it for Lois would have been okay in the second movie either. I feel like the only justifiable reason for him doing this would be if the Earth was pretty much destroyed in his battle with Zod, as the original plan, and then he could have that big show of power, and then don't make any more movies. Because that should be the end and the pinnacle of his power. Because then every other movie you're wondering, why doesn't he do that?
Yeah,
why doesn't he do that?
Right. It's a pretty awesome power, and he's used it pretty much first off. And
if he used it to save the Earth, well, that would be admirable. And maybe he discovers that power.
He didn't. He basically burned himself out doing it, and almost or dies, to save the
Earth. They have some sort of price to pay for it.
Or maybe he didn't realize he had this power. In this movie, I get the impression that he kind of knew he could do this in the first movie.
Okay. Yeah, it is a bit ambiguous, I thought. He flew off in a rage, and he just, I don't know what he. Yeah, you're right. I don't know what he was doing.
All right, him having the ability to turn back time is kind of one thing. When they do it in Smallville, it's actually a Kryptonian. It's like a tech thing, and it can only be done once. So they discovered time travel, but it's not an infinite thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Even then, those consequences, he saves one person he loves and the other person he loves. Why couldn't Lana die? Just why? I was so mad when I saw that episode. She was so annoying, and
I was. You know what? With Lana, I'm gonna say this. Her character gets annoying, and I hate where they take her at times. Well, most of the time, but when they decided to kind of pair her up with Lex in season 6. By that time, I was like, you know what? Just do it. I don't even care. It'll actually make me like her character, because then it'll be like, all right, Clark, you accidentally betrayed 2 friends and now they're both angry at you. All right, this makes more sense. But no, they always got to not do that. So
yeah.
Ray's I have to watch Smallville now. Understand?
And I'm keen. Yeah, very cool. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then he brings Lex and Otis to the prison, and the warden's like, "Oh, we're safe thanks to you, Superman." And he's like, "Oh no, we're all did it." It's like, "No, Superman, you did everything. No one else did anything. It was just you."
It's nice that he can just drop somebody off at a prison. I mean, sure, Lex is wanted. Cops are tracking him for whatever reason. I mean, he's obviously done stuff, and he's a wanted man, but I don't think that Superman can just drop him off at a prison and they're like, okay, well, let's throw him in a cell.
Yeah. Due process, stuff like that would need to be done. And so,
look, at this point, my brain has vacated my head. So, I'm just like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Forget the booking process, everything else, just throw him in a prison cell and be done with it.
Well, I mean, I love those Golden Age stories where he would like tear down slum tenants and just rebuild them better. And just all these crazy schemes that just would not work at all in real life. But anyway. Yeah, that's the movie. What do you guys have anything to add to the final scenes?
I mean, we get that lovely, final shot of him that they use in every movie.
Yeah.
Cut and paste of winking to the camera if he flies away, which is great in this movie.
Yeah, with that kind of
Superman breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, yeah. My mum loves that scene, by the way.
She just likes Christopher Reeve winking at her.
Yeah, exactly.
I think my mum's the same.
Yeah. She'd always make comment, "Oh, that Christopher Reeve is such a good actor." Every time that came up.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think out of all the actors to play Superman, he's the best actor.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, agree.
But even though he's not my favorite, I still think he's the best actor. So
a close second to Eben, though. So
yes, Eben. Yeah. Well, I guess final thoughts on the movie. I mean, I guess we covered a lot of our thoughts on the movie in the first episode, really.
Well, it's a classic, It's had so much that has influenced and reverberated through Superman in all mediums at this point.
Yeah.
You can't deny the influence that it's had, positively or negatively on the Superman lore since in the last 40 years. But, for its time, it was a great movie. And I mean, sure, we've poked plenty of holes in it, but, it's still really fun to watch. And, you can watch it with all generations and, people will love it. So, and have for 40 years.
Yeah, I think they achieved a really big thing in because Superman's costume is very comic booky, and they've managed to ground it and make it a serious, as they were aiming for, a serious film. And I think it's a pretty hard thing to do with the aesthetic of Superman, but they do it, and that's down to Christopher Reeve. It's down to, I guess, the production of the whole movie, and it just did so much for superhero comics, comic book movies to come. It's very important.
How many movies have used it as an influence? I mean, the Raimi Spider-Man movies, Wonder Woman, you name it. It's
absolutely.
It is like the Godfather of the modern superhero movie.
Yeah.
And it's 40 years old.
I know, 40, nearly 50 years old.
I'm just going to say it doesn't hold up as well as The Godfather, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, but that's different genres, totally.
I know.
Yeah.
We got someone wants to say hi real quick.
Hi.
Hey. Hello.
My little Superboy's up.
Awesome.
But no, I think we've pretty much touched on the movie and gone over everything, and
yeah, no worries. No, it's been great. It's been great.
Yeah, no. Thanks very much for having us on.
Yeah.
So glad we got to discuss this movie with you guys.
Yeah, it's an epic movie. Definitely needed the 2 episodes, a crossover. It's great to just talk Superman in general with you guys.
Definitely.
And like I said at the start of the show, if you enjoyed that, head on over to Twitter at LSK Podcast, or you can find them on Facebook, the Last Sons of Krypton Podcast.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Krypton Report. You can also email us at kryptonreportpod@gmail.com. If you get a chance to go over to iTunes, please leave us a review to help us get better.
If you're an Amazon shopper, just remember you can go to southgatemediagroup.com. There's a portal, log into Amazon, and you'll shop into your account just regular, but it also helps keep all the podcasts on and helps keep Southgate running. Remember, look up in the sky.